Welcome to episode 17 of the Gambots Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
Today, we are going to be talking about the first season of The League. A new Avengers trailer dropped, and me and Christian are going to give our thoughts on that. I watched The Disaster Artist this week, and then we're going to finish up with some video game news relating to Street Fighter, Smash Brothers, and South Korean boosting. But first, Christian, you finally got to see the first season of The League. Did you like it?
I did, yeah. You know, I feel like I tried to watch this before, and I didn't enjoy it. But watching it again over the past few weeks, I honestly don't think I even made it through, like, the whole way through the first episode the first time I watched it. Because even the end of that first episode was all new to me, and I'm glad I gave it another shot because I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I really like The League. I like the earlier seasons way more. I think they get more and more outrageous, and I think they run into the problem of having to one-up themselves each time. But I really think in the first season, it's the most grounded of just an extreme fantasy football league, and it's really, really well done.
Yeah, it's real funny. It does remind me of, like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where it's just a show about, like, the 5 worst people in the world interacting with each other.
Yes, and then there's nothing really redeemable about any of the characters.
Oh, yeah, they're all completely horrible.
Yes, it definitely is like I think Always Sunny took the Seinfeld approach to our characters never learn and took it one step further. And I think The League took it maybe not a step further, but in a more vulgar direction.
Yeah, it's less our characters never learn and more our characters refuse to learn.
That's a good point. That is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know, it's basically just like we said, it's a show about 5 friends who play fantasy football with each other, and they get way, way too invested in it. And then it's just kind of about their lives and their families and relationships with each other. And it's a borderline of goofy and, like, real dark humor. And it's right up my alley for where I am right now.
Yeah, and so the League has some, I think, names of people who went on to become more popular. Like Nick Kroll's in the League, and he might have been in a few things before this, but this is where I really first saw him. And then Paul Scheer is also in the League, who I am a really big fan of just from this and How Did This Get Made podcast. And they're 2 of the main characters in it.
Yeah, and the first guy you meet is Mark Duplass, who's been in a few movies, and he was on an HBO show called Togetherness. And I think he might actually be a showrunner for another HBO show, but I'd have to double check that. So he's had a fairly good career as well. But yeah, they all mesh real well in this. And then starting in season 2, which I just began, they introduce Raffi, who's played by Jason Mantzoukas, who I've said several times I'm a real big fan of. So I'm excited to see more Raffi as well.
Oh, and in the League, Jason Mantzoukas is the most extreme versions of Jason Mantzoukas. He goes balls to the wall on this, and everything after this is, it's a toned down Raffi.
Yeah, he's only been in, I think, 2 episodes that I've seen so far, and yeah, just from those appearances alone, I can tell he's on another level of himself.
Listening to him on How Did This Get Made, it's one of those things, like, he's so good at playing a crazy actor, and he's pretty crazy on his show on How Did This Get Made, but actually hearing him make intelligible points on a podcast is so jarring because just how insane he is in the show.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, even his toned down version is, like, definitely a level higher than everybody else is on that show.
Yeah, yeah, he's great in this. So if you guys don't know, the show, like Christian said, stars 5 guys, and they're trying to win what they call the Shiva, which is the name of their trophy for their fantasy football league. And the first episode, I think it's really funny because I know fantasy football has been big and maybe other people had done things like this beforehand, but I never really experienced this until I saw the show. How they picked their draft order was they were at one of their kids' birthday parties and they essentially drafted the kids, and then whoever won the race would get the first pick. I thought that was funny of just starting there as, okay, this is how we're actually going to be picking positions. This is not just a boring show about fantasy football.
Yeah, because then they were actively cheering for kids that weren't their kids.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, just that the pilot has so much stuff in it. The one character, Taco, sings the birthday song, and basically from there on I was in. It was so off the wall and crude to be singing at like a 3 or 4 year old's birthday party, and I was like, oh man, this is really meshing with my sense of humor right now.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. I think this show was originally intended to star Pete and not really all the, they're all supposed to be characters, but I think Pete was supposed to be the main character just with how he's positioned. And over the seasons, he really, really just falls from grace as kind of being put together. Because he's the one, I think, with the least foibles, I guess, because Paul Scheer gets made fun of all the time as Andre. Kevin gets made fun of because his wife runs his team, and then Ruxin is just who's played by Nick Kroll, is just so obnoxious. I think he was positioned to be more or less the straight man.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because, like I said, he is kind of the first one we get introduced to in the beginning, and it seems to be following his story at first, but it's similar to me that the way New Girl kind of progressed from it being all about Zooey Deschanel to it being about the group as a whole, to where she took like half a season off and I barely even noticed. But like Nick Kroll plays Ruxin, and he is objectively the worst out of all of them. He is so horrible, and he is easily my favorite character. And I used to hate Nick Kroll, and it pained me to be like, oh yes, Ruxin is the best.
My favorite part of Nick Kroll as Ruxin in season 1 is when he's negotiating with Kevin over the first round draft pick, and they're both attorneys, so one's a defense attorney and one's a prosecutor, and they're essentially give less jail time to this guy if Nick Kroll gives up his first pick, which they're going to take as Adrian Peterson. So it's funny to me that they're so intense about this. They're letting their literal jobs get in the way. And then when Nick Kroll gives them up, he goes, you had to really go back for a Snickers bar, man. They're like $1. Like, he's mad at his client about it.
Yeah, that was definitely a pretty fantastic one. I love him. Like I just saw something today that was like totally off the wall, terrible. Like him, how he treats his coworkers, and I was just rolling.
Yeah, I've seen him in a couple other things. I didn't really like the Nick Kroll show. I like him in this, and I really liked him in Uncle Drew. He's the bad guy in that. But otherwise, I don't know if I'm a huge fan, but he is definitely good in this.
Well, I think what started to bring me around on him was he's really good friends with John Mulaney, who is probably my favorite stand-up comedian. I love everything Mulaney does. And they had a Broadway show together that they both played old men. And so I was watching clips of that and I was laughing, and so I think that like loosened me up on him for a little while.
Yeah. What was your favorite episode this season?
Ooh, this season, it honestly, I was going to say it was the pilot, but now that I'm looking at the list, it was an episode 4 called Mr. McGiblets, where one of the guys hires his brother to break into his own house and scare his daughter, dressed as a basically like an Elmo-like character, so that his daughter will hate the toy and stop playing with it. And the whole plot, from like the conception to the follow through, was so completely ridiculous. I was laughing the entire way through. He rolls up to this window in this like knockoff Elmo costume with like a cleaver knife, just staring in the window. It was incredible.
Yeah, I think that might be my favorite episode of the season as well. That's Taco as Mr. McGiblets is great. If you guys haven't seen it, the first season's only 6 episodes. It's a really short watch. You might like it. It's definitely easy to check out. I think you could be able to tell by the first or second episode if this show's for you or not.
Yeah, for sure. Like I would honestly say even by the first. Like if you make it through the pilot you'll like the show. And if you don't even bother trying to press on, because honestly, if you didn't like the pilot, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
But this is not on Netflix. It is on Hulu. If you want to check it out, all the seasons are up on Hulu now, so you can stream till your heart's content.
That's good to know. I guess last time I watched it was on Netflix. They must have lost licensing for it.
Yeah.
So this week, the newest Avengers trailer dropped. Its title is Avengers Endgame. It's a sequel to Avengers Infinity War. If you saw that, it obviously ended on quite the cliffhanger. So this preview is the first glimpse we see as to the fate of some of the characters from the last movie. Did you get a chance to see this, Christian?
Many, many times.
I'm guessing you like the Marvel movies in Avengers?
Oh my goodness, yes.
So does this movie get you excited for Endgame?
It does. It was really like when the Captain Marvel trailer came out, I was interested. When the second Captain Marvel trailer came out, I was more interested. But this is really what I was waiting for, was for an Infinity War trailer.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched a Marvel movie, I don't think, since Infinity War. I missed Ant-Man 2. I need to see that still. And I will try and see Captain Marvel because I think both of those are really into this movie. But I don't want to go into spoilers too much, but essentially we see all of the characters who we saw survive the snap originally. Tony Stark looks like he's stranded in space. We see Nebula is still alive. Captain America and Black Widow are discussing it, so you're a little bit unsure what's going on. You see Bruce Banner looking on to possibly missing members of the Avengers. I feel like it seems like it has a little bit of a downtrodden note in the team, so I'm interested in what direction they're going to take this.
Yeah, for sure. So there was a discussion among, people I know about what the exact effects of the snap were going to be. Was it going to be that these people disappeared, or was it going to be that they were like erased from time? Because there isn't really much that happens on screen after the snap. And so there was a question about, like, do the people even realize that there are people missing, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Do they realize that a snap actually happened?
Yeah, like did they know that they used to have friends that aren't there anymore? And apparently the answer to that is definitely yes. They are aware of what happened.
I was going to say, I think that'll definitely happen because at the end of the, and I guess this is spoilers if you haven't seen Infinity War, but you saw characters visibly seeing other characters disappear. Like I would guess that they knew that something had happened.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming as well. But I did hear a compelling argument that maybe their memories had kind of been snapped away as well. But that does not appear to be the case. It definitely ended on kind of an Empire Strikes Back, the bad guys win kind of vibe. So I'm not at all surprised to see this trailer be as kind of like you said, downtrodden as it is. They all have to kind of grapple with what happened at the end of the last movie.
Yeah, and what really sold me on this trailer, I liked the opening with Tony Stark talking into the recording of his helmet. I think that really drove home that this entire saga, even though there's been multiple characters in it, the entire Avengers thing and really the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe starts with Tony Stark. And it seems like phase one, or whatever they want to call this, is going to end with Tony Stark in one way or another. And then Captain America to a lesser extent. I think, he's number 2 on the team, but really I think this is going to be heavily about Tony Stark and Tony Stark's choices. That's my guess.
Well, I remember a long time ago when it first came out that he had signed a contract for 3 Iron Mans and 3 Avengers, and that was it. And so after Civil War, there was a discussion of, is he done? Because he's technically fulfilled 3 Iron Mans and 3 crossovers, and then he was back for the first Infinity War, obviously, and for Spider-Man Homecoming. So he's kind of just stuck around. But I had a conversation with a friend of mine way back when about how this is Iron Man's universe and the other characters are just living in it. And that is kind of, well, not even kind of, that's really no longer the case, and it seems to be by design, really kind of moved beyond relying heavily on like one or two characters' personalities, especially now that we're losing the entire like central team. There won't be another, well, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, and Chris Hemsworth have all said they're leaving. I don't know about Mark Ruffalo or not, but it seems like we are starting to transition into like a second generation with, especially with the success of Black Panther.
That's disappointing. I didn't realize Chris Hemsworth was leaving because I think his movies started out weak. I didn't think Thor 1 was too good. It was all right. I didn't think Dark World was very good. I thought he was good in Avengers, and then I think Ragnarok was amazing. I was really hoping he'd get another shot there with a Thor standalone.
Yeah, I would have to double check, but I'm almost completely sure that he has said that this is going to be his last one as well.
Man, he really grew on me. Especially, did you see those shorts he did with his roommate in Australia? I thought they were amazing.
Like what was Thor up to during Civil War?
Yeah.
Well, those were actually produced by Taika Waititi, the director for Ragnarok, and he has said that he wanted to do that as a way of like kind of subtly shifting Thor's image from like big tough guy to kind of like weirdly funny guy, so that when you went and saw Ragnarok, it wasn't as jarring.
Yeah, I would love to see another Thor movie by him. I like his movies because he did What We Do in the Shadows, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And he did this other one, and I can not remember the name. It's set in New Zealand. This kid ended up getting adopted by a family out in the bush, and then it's like it's like a coming of age story, and it was really well done. It's actually the same kid who was sort of the bad kid in Deadpool 2, the fire starting kid.
Oh, okay.
It was really good. So I am a fan of his movies. It's disappointing he doesn't have Chris Hemsworth anymore after this last movie here.
Well, he's definitely still going to be like knocking around in this franchise though, because it's like him and the Russo brothers are kind of like the movie runners now for Marvel. Every picture I see from like the actors or from directors, it's always Kevin Feige, who is the kind of the mastermind of the MCU, and he's always hanging out with the Russo brothers and with Taika. So I'm interested. I'm not really sure what his next project in the MCU will be, especially since he lost Thor, but I could see him like heading up Guardians of the Galaxy if that has a future after the third one. Now that James Gunn isn't part of that team anymore, I think he would be a good fit to take like slide in there.
Yeah, they have so many characters. I'm curious who's going to. I mean, this is clearly a way for them to make way for their wave 2 of characters. I mean, you got Spider-Man, you got Black Panther is going to be one they're clearly going to rely on. Seems like Captain Marvel. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that transition. Yeah,
for sure. But as for right this very moment, I'm just happy to see Hawkeye again.
Yeah, looks interesting. I read he's in one of his darker forms called Ronin, where it seems like maybe his family was snapped or something, and he's taken on a darker turn.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, because that was the reason they gave for him not being involved in Infinity War, was that he was giving up the life and spending more time with his family. And if they all got disintegrated, it would be wild to see like what he would become.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good movie. It comes out April 26th, I believe. April 26th.
Yep.
So I'm really excited for this. This is almost 5 months away. Very pumped to finally see the conclusion of this. I think I'm going to do a marathon and watch every movie in the next 5 months up into that, because it's a bit of an undertaking.
It's a 22 movie arc.
This week, I watched The Disaster Artist, which, if people don't know, is a movie directed by James Franco and also stars David Franco and James Franco, the brothers Franco. And it is a movie about, it's basically a biopic or a recreation of the filming of the cult hit The Room. You are a fan of The Room, right, Christian?
I'm a huge fan of The Room.
So why don't you give us a little background on what The Room is?
Well, first I have to ask, since you've seen Disaster Artist, have you seen The Room?
No, I've talked to my brother, and he really suggested this movie, and I just saw it was on Amazon Prime this weekend, so I decided to watch it. I didn't see The Room. I later found out The Room is actually for free on YouTube, so I decided to watch this one first, and now I'm going to go watch The Room with the background of it.
Of course, The Room is free on YouTube. I'm not even surprised at all about that.
Now, Tommy Wiseau put it up there for free a couple years ago, I guess, because I was looking it up because it wasn't anywhere, like it wasn't on the Amazon store. I was really confused.
Yeah, like I bought the DVD from somewhere, I don't even know where, and then I loaned it to my friend, and she took it to the other side of the country. So if it's free on YouTube, I might watch it when I go home tonight.
Yeah. So what is The Room?
So The Room is a wonderful, nonsensical. It defies explanation. Honestly, it does. It's a movie about a man and his future wife, and I will say future wife because the word fiance never appears in the movie. And she decides that she does not love him anymore for no reason, and then decides to have an affair with his best friend. And so it's just about the three of them and their weird neighbor who is, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 35. And it's just incredible. It really does defy explanation. It was written, produced, directed, and starring the same guy. His name's Tommy Wiseau. And he is really just something else. He won't tell anyone how old he is. He won't tell anyone where he's from. He won't tell anyone how he makes his money because he self-financed this movie, and it apparently cost $6 million to make, which is outrageous because this movie is not worth $6 million. It is dreadful in all the best possible ways. Like, it sucks you in. I have absorbed every piece of information I could find about this movie, and everything you learn makes it better.
And so that's The Room, and The Disaster Artist is essentially the making of The Room.
Yeah, so the other lead in the movie, the guy who plays Tommy's best friend, is named Greg Sestero. His character's name is Mark. And Dave Franco plays Greg in The Disaster Artist. So after The Room became this kind of cultural phenomenon, Greg wrote a book called The Disaster Artist that was just about the making of the movie. And then it got adapted into another movie. So The Disaster Artist is a movie based on the book, based on the making of a different movie.
That's so amazing that there's so many layers to this. And I think, it makes sense. It seems like people in Hollywood love this movie, or at least comedians do. I don't know what it is. Just people in Hollywood were like, this is kind of awesome that this exists, and just the outrageous circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was The Disaster Artist itself or if it was an article I read about it that just called this like the most unlikely movie to exist, basically. Like, against all odds, this dude made this movie, got it out, and it became successful, not despite of how bad it was, but because of how bad it was.
Yeah, I actually think they talk about it at the beginning of The Disaster Artist. They have Adam Scott and a couple other people just talking about the movie, and it's crazy. And I gotta say, I knew James Franco was playing Tommy Wiseau, or Wiseau, however you pronounce his name. I didn't think I could not tell that was James Franco. He does such the makeup for it. He is that guy, the voice. Usually I'm like, oh, that's James Franco playing a character. No, he crushed this role.
Yeah, so The Disaster Artist, probably the most interesting part of it for me was at the very end, during the credits, they do a side-by-side of scenes from the original movie and like the recreated scenes that they did with James Franco and company, and they are like spot on, shot for shot, perfect. And I listened to an interview with him. I think it was actually on How Did This Get Made when they reviewed Disaster Artist. And he said they decided to put that in because the people who hadn't seen The Room were telling James Franco that he was way too over the top. And the people that had seen The Room were telling him that he wasn't doing enough.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so good. The shots. I've heard so much about The Room. I need to just sit down and watch it sometime. So this had a budget of 10 million, ended up making 29 million in the box office. So it did pretty well. People like this. I think people just wanted to be in this movie. I know we talked about them a lot, but Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas are both in this, as well as Seth Rogen, and they're James Franco buddies and whatnot. But they're good in it too, because normally you're used to them just playing over the top characters, and like this is just them doing regular acting, and it's kind of awesome seeing them just be normal actors.
Yeah, also in this is June Diane Raphael, so they actually got the entire How Did This Get Made?
Who is she?
She is, I think she plays Michelle. She's one of the actresses in the movie.
Was she the blonde-haired one?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I always wondered what she looks like, and now I know.
Yeah.
I guess I could look it up. But
she's not the main blonde-haired one. She's like the friend actress. But she is also blonde. Yeah. When I saw her, because she was the last one to appear, when I saw her, I was like, yep, there's all three.
If you guys are a fan of The Room, you should definitely check out the How Did This Get Made podcast on The Room, specifically, not the Disaster Artist, because they have Greg Sestero on there just giving the behind the scenes, question and answer stuff, and it's a really good episode.
Yeah, and that was actually even before the book came out, because I remember they asked him what the title is going to be, and he's like, I don't know yet. It might be this, and it ends up not being that. It ends up being the Disaster Artist. But yeah, it's a good episode of the podcast. This is a good movie. The original is obviously a weirdly good movie. I've said in the past that the best viewing experience is to watch The Room, then read the book, and then watch The Room again. Because Greg talks about because the book is half about the making and half about kind of just his weird friendship with Johnny, with Tommy, not Johnny, who's the character. And you pick up on all these weird things that Tommy shoehorned into the movie just because like they were things that he used to do with Greg. So there's like a weird, like very intricate bro handshake that Greg talks about how like they used to just do that and that Tommy loved it. And so he decided he wanted to put it in the movie.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say was like this, why the Disaster Artist, at least, and it seems like maybe even The Room is so endearing is it's, the movie's about the creation of the movie The Room, but really there's an undercurrent about a story of these two guys who are really different, but actually really good friends. And even though they have a falling out and stuff, like they do actually care about each other. And it's the lengths that they go to try and be a good friend that the other one doesn't necessarily recognize. Like Tommy puts all this money and essentially creates a movie for him and Greg to be stars. And then Greg gives up what could be his, turning point role on Malcolm in the Middle, but neither of them really appreciate it that much. More so until the end, when this, I think, becomes kind of a cult classic.
Yeah, now there is definitely a lot more in the book that they didn't have time to explore in the movie. They changed some stuff just kind of for, I think, like runtime's sake. They didn't have time to really delve into the intricacies of their weird friendship. And the book does kind of dive into Tommy's past a little bit. You get little glimpses of it, which is real eye-opening and a little dark in places. But yeah, it's just a very strange story. And I like I said, I can't get enough of it. Every time you learn something else, it becomes more interesting.
Yeah, I am glad that I checked it out. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a good movie. I'm excited to check out The Room now because I have the background in it. I think I'm going to hopefully pick up this stuff more because of this and because I listen to those podcasts. Maybe if I really like it, I'll read the book too.
Yeah, I got the audiobook. I would definitely recommend doing it that way. because it's narrated by Greg, and he does Tommy's voice perfectly.
And I gotta say, like, Tommy seems like he's a little bit of a weird guy, but there is something inspiring about him just being so passionate about something, even if he's not that great at it, and just going for it.
Yeah, my friend and I quote the book often, and it's there's a line where he's talking about, like, why did we film all this stuff outside, or why did we make the roof such a big set piece? And Tommy's like, maybe at the end the car will fly off the roof. Maybe Johnny is vampire. Possible subplot. It's just one of the most off the wall. Like, it would have nothing to do with the movie at all to just at the end reveal, oh, he's been a vampire the whole time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's just a weird guy, but my goodness, it became a bit of an obsession for me.
All right, this week in video game news. First up, Street Fighter V has recently announced that they're going to start putting in-game ads for basically microtransactions, so for their costumes or whatnot for Street Fighter V. And you have the option to turn it off, but if you do, players who do that actually lose fight money, which is what you use to buy costumes or other sponsored material. So you're actually getting content cut back from you that you're able to access if you turn off these ads for their game, for a game you already presumably paid full price for, which was a $60 game when it was released in 2016. Did you get a chance to look into this at all, Christian?
Yeah, I read the article, and this is just the worst.
Yeah, not only do you pay $60 in fighting games, or maybe it's $15 now because it's older, but that's just for the base game. Street Fighter V has a lot of DLC where you had to buy characters, and characters in these games aren't cheap. They're like $5, things like that, unless you get some in-game fight money.
Yeah, like this is the natural progression of including microtransactions in these like large scale games. This is exactly where we were going from the beginning, is now they're going to do commercials in the game, which is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, it's a very disturbing trend to punish people who don't want to pay ads, who paid full price for this. And then, you're right, the next step is just going to be legitimate advertisement on top of it. I mean, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like, honestly, why even bother giving people the option to turn it off if you're just going to, like, throttle the game back?
Yeah, you're just dinging them for it. I don't support this, but it would be different if it was incentive, like, hey, turn on this and you get 1.5 more cash and whatever. But, you're like, oh, you want to do it? You're going to make less money than you would normally be making.
Yeah, that's a good point. Incentivizing people to do something is different than punishing them for not doing it.
Yeah, I still don't like that idea, because who wants to look at... I mean, the best thing about video games is... I mean, there was an ad. You turn it on, and you're in your own world. It's like a book, right? You have previews with movies, and don't think they're that obtrusive, because you obviously can just skip them if you show up late. But this is like an internet webpage, just for it's like Flash. Like, I would want to get an ad block for that. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, and it drives me crazy. It would be honestly like if you bought a TV show on DVD and then every 15 minutes a commercial appeared. Like, I paid for this for the express reason of not having to deal with this. Yeah. I tolerate ads on like apps that I get for free because I get them for free. Like, I can buy an ad-free version if I want to, and that's perfectly appropriate. I usually don't, but like, I have the option. But it's free, and the developers have to get paid somehow. And so I acknowledge that that's an evil that you have to just kind of deal with. But to put an ad in something that you've already paid for, that's so frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Christian. Like, it's free at that point. Usually, I mean, Hulu's an exception, but usually it's a free app. You're like, okay, I'm getting it for free. I understand that. This is a full price game you pay, And on top of that, this game came out in 2016. The only people still playing this are their hardcore players. These are the players who most likely have bought multiple characters and given more than the original $60 price tag that you are now forcing to watch ads to pay you more money.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even with Hulu, like, I'm only paying $6 a month. That's way less than I would be paying for cable, and I'm honestly using it more than I would be using my cable. So I don't even. I'm spoiled because I'm so used to Netflix, but for $6 a month, I can deal with like 2 or 3 commercials in a half hour, an hour TV show. That doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, if I were buying these things on DVD and commercials were popping up, that would be way too far.
Yeah, and I guess for me, to be fair to Hulu, you have the option to buy the ad-free version. It's just annoying, it's just annoying you have to pay and it still has ads.
It's true, yeah. I look at it like a trade-off. If I could pay twice as much as I'm currently paying and have no ads, or I could pay what I'm paying and I'm still coming out ahead. And if I was like compared to just outright buying cable.
Yeah. But disturbing trends, I feel like we end up talking about microtransactions every week just because they're making the news. In other fighting games, Smash Brothers released last week. We talked a little bit about it last week. I have not gotten to play it. It has generally positive reviews. I've seen mostly 9s or higher. People seem to really like it. It's more Smash. I'm excited. I'm getting it for Christmas. Hopefully I'll get it a little bit earlier so I can play it and talk about it before the end of the year. But they actually recently released they announced their first DLC character, and it was a huge surprise for me. So the first DLC character you can get is Joker from Persona 5, which is obviously the Persona series, which is crazy to me because there's been no indication that Persona characters would ever be in Smash.
Yeah, now this isn't like a Nintendo official property, is it?
No, so Persona is published by Atlas. Have you had a chance to ever play Persona games?
They've always been like right outside my bubble. I've walked kind of right up to them, but I never actually played any of them. So
Persona comes from the Shin Megami series, which started with Persona 1. They were on PlayStations, and then some of them are on 3DS. So they have been on Nintendo consoles in the past. I wouldn't say they're big Nintendo. I'd say they're more PlayStation aligned. Persona 3 and Persona 3 PES and Persona 4, all huge PlayStation 2 games. Persona 4 Golden on the Vita is the best title, I think, on the Vita. Persona 5 was released to huge acclaim on the PlayStation 5. And then they also have these weird dancing games. Like, it's a really big series in JRPG circles. What's interesting about them is they're part JRPG and part high school life simulator. So you have to pick and choose what you do during your day. I don't want to get too much into them. I really like the series. I know trying to find time to play 5. I'm almost through 4. I've played 3 PES. 4 on the Vita is awesome, and 5 is supposed to be great. I just need to find time in my day to move on to another 100-hour JRPG. But to me, like, this was a PlayStation exclusive, and this character is on Smash Brothers, which is crazy. And it just led me to think, what other characters could be on Smash Brothers? Because at this point, we've had Bayonetta, we've had Cloud, we've had Ryu, we've had Ken, and these are all non-Nintendo guys. I'm really curious who else could possibly be on here. And then my next question to you is, what non-Nintendo character would you like to see in Smash? Because it seems like it could be possible.
I'm honestly going to say Crash Bandicoot.
And I think it could happen. I mean, Crash, the Insane Trilogy was on the Switch.
Yeah. Like, Crash isn't a classic fighting game, but I mean, neither is like Kirby, but it still has, or even Mario or Sonic, but they still have like attack moves built right into the game. So I could definitely see like spin attack, a jump attack, a kick attack. Like, he's got all this already like native to the original games. And then he even has a boost power up that he gets by putting the magic mask on. That could be a built-in Final Smash thing. Like I think he would be a good fit.
Yeah, I think you would be right in there, especially because I know they have more human characters, but I think Crash fits the Nintendo design generally.
Yeah, I would be really excited to see that. My immediate impulse was Spyro, but I don't know. Spyro's I think it would be a little trickier, especially since he can fly, or at least kind of fly. You would end up with somebody like a Kirby where you could just kind of float around the stage.
Yeah, or can't Meta Knight kind of like triple, like that a little bit?
Yeah.
Something like that. I was thinking Spyro a little bit too, just because I've been playing. But after I thought about it a little more, if I had to pick anyone, I think I would actually pick Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yeah.
I think he might maybe be too much like Cloud or something like that. But Cloud being included makes me think you could get a Square Enix. And there's just so many different things from Kingdom Hearts. I think he could work out in there.
Yeah, honestly, like without getting too much into the the similarities between movesets, because really you've already got a fair number of like sword wielders in Smash. Like you've got Cloud and Ike and Lucina and the whole gang. But really any Final Fantasy character could fit in there. It's the same kind of deal. They all have like pre-built movesets that would work well in a fighting game.
Yeah. Another interesting one I think is, do you think a Marvel character could ever make it in, or there would just be too much licensing clashing?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I was going to mention, I've talked to people in the past about I would love for Disney to put out like their own Smash, because they own, half the universe now. It could be all your classic Disney characters. It could be Pixar characters. You could get the original Kingdom Hearts characters, Sora, Riku, Kairi, Axel, and the gang. And then now you could throw in the Marvel characters, and on top of that, now you can throw in the Star Wars characters. So it would be like a hell of a roster that you could draw from if it was just Disney properties.
Yeah, it would be insane. They'd have to do it right though, because I thought PlayStation All-Stars was a good in practice, but it didn't turn out too good on execution. It was not very much fun. I'm going to point out one I think would be really cool to have in here. It's a Nintendo character, though, but just because we have the Piranha Plant now, I would like to see a playable Goomba. Just because I think it would be crazy to see a Goomba just wrecking people.
Yeah, they've reached for some of their players. It's nice to see them branching out. Maybe they can go back and revisit some of their old properties and pull more obscure stuff like that. The Piranha Plant was a surprise.
Yeah, I am excited to play this, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, everything I've read online, it's been getting fairly good reviews, so I'll have to check it out somehow.
And finally, South Korea has recently passed a law that will make it illegal to. And finally, South Korea recently passed a law that will fine people who boost other people's accounts up to $18,000 for doing so. So if you guys don't know, South Korea is huge into esports, and boosting an account is more or less having someone play your account to get you to a higher level in ranked matches than you should be, or some way rigging the system to help you get into there. For example, my only real experience is with competitive gaming in Overwatch. Sometimes people would play with guys who are way higher ranks than them and that were way better and would just carry them through matches so they would get to higher ranks. I'm not entirely sure if South Korea's law covers that or not, but it definitely covers if you paid someone or you were paid by someone to raise them through the rankings. And up to a pretty ridiculous fine. $18,000 is not cheap.
Yeah, you're gonna have to help me through with this one, because is this like a thing that people care about?
Apparently. So esports are really big in Korea, and maybe people think if they're higher in the rankings, you have a better shot. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe streaming's big, and if you're higher ranking, people will watch you more. I know like League of Legends, StarCraft, Dota, Overwatch to a lesser extent were all huge games. And I know boosting used to be a thing because people didn't, and at least in Overwatch, people didn't like being in the lower ranks because your teammates weren't as good. But really, generally you're put where you are for a reason. You're not meant to be a couple ranks above you if you can't climb out of that. And I'm sure there's extenuating circumstances on those rare scenarios, but generally with ranking, I felt like I was always put where I probably should be, even if I wanted to be better. But
yeah, I guess I don't know. This reading about this boggled my mind that people care this much about it. Like,
yeah,
I've had parts of a video game that I couldn't try, and I couldn't do it, and I had a friend of mine knock it out for me, no problem. Does that mean that I'm gonna owe South Korea $18,000? Like, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to go into two parts. Number one, apparently this was popular because I guess there were companies in Korea created specifically for boosting people. So people were paying, and I think this only applies to multiplayer games that you're playing in a competitive setting. So obviously, you'd be playing League of Legends ranked matches or something like that. I don't think it applies to single player games.
Yeah, I guess. Like, are people making? Yeah, okay. I guess the question is, are people making money off of playing these video games?
I mean, the boosting people obviously are. The other people, I'm not sure. Like, this came as a complete surprise to me, and I just find it interesting because, like I said, I used to play Overwatch a lot, and every once in a while, I'd hear people complain about someone boosting. It's annoying for other players because, a really good player would create what they would call a Smurf account, which was essentially a new account, and they would be placed at lower rankings where they don't belong, and they would either just wreck people or they would be helping boost someone else. So it made games unbalanced. But this is one of those things where it's super annoying. I think game companies should take more steps to handle it. I can't believe a country passed a law on it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, if you're gonna be, if you're gonna make the game crappy for other people to play, then yeah, of course there should be consequences. Like, you should have your account suspended or whatever else. But for a government to step in and be like, you're being mean on Overwatch or wherever else. Now, if somebody is playing this competitively for a real life cash prize, then there should probably be legal consequences to sabotaging other players or helping other players with an unfair advantage. But if it's literally just to play the game, why would any government care about this much?
Yeah, and in fairness, I guess I don't know specifically what this is trying to curtail, just because I think it's a little bit lost in translation and a little bit developing news, and I haven't followed this at all. But yeah, it seems crazy. I used Overwatch a lot, but I don't think this is necessarily aimed at that. I think it's probably more like League of Legends or StarCraft. I think those are much bigger games in South Korea. But yeah, pretty crazy news. Just thought that was really interesting tidbit of information to put out there this week.
Yeah, it's wild, the things people invest in.
Yeah. All right, guys, now we're going to move on to our Amazon review game. A quick reminder on how this works is Christian has a 5-star review from Amazon. He's going to read it. I will then get 2 yes or no questions to help me narrow down the movie. I can then ask Christian to read another review. I get 2 more yes or no questions, and then I can ask for a final review, and then I have to guess. I am ready whenever you are, Christian.
All right, this review is from Graham Crawford. I don't know how I missed it when it came out. How did it only gross $48 million in the United States when it was released? It may have been ahead of the curve, better than Deadpool and just bursting at the seams with great energy, imagination, and risk-taking, not to mention an unusually intricate plot. I felt like their backstories were stronger than typical hero films, and it's a masterclass in editing and pacing. The pace never lags, and there are times that it zooms a few steps ahead of the viewer and patiently waits for you to catch up. What I like best about it is it's a movie that doesn't pull its punches.
Oh boy, I feel like you're giving me clues there. guess. Is this a superhero movie?
Yes.
Is this a like team superhero movie? Sorry, is this like a group superhero movie?
Kind of.
Does it feature a group? Does it feature a group of whatever main characters?
Yes.
Okay. Oh man, I think I have an idea, but I'm going to ask for another review. I wasted my first one on is this a superhero movie?
All right, this one's from Karen Osborne. I love this movie and I watch it over and over and over. But what I don't really get is why the boy who plays the villain's son wants to be in the same business as his dad. Yeah. I mean, he knows, and we all know what the dad does for a living, killing people because he doesn't like them. I also don't get why all these movies have to have drugs tangled up in them somehow. But I thought it was pretty funny when the son held the gun up, pretended to be his dad, and then right as the phone rings, he's like, "What? I wasn't doing anything. Well, nothing stupid, or in this case, ridiculous, but sometimes I'm literally the same way."
Is this the first movie in a series?
Yes.
Is this Kick-Ass?
It is.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I knew what you're talking about, but I was like, I don't know if it's one or two, and I wasted it on being a superhero movie. I guess I could have narrowed it down. Yeah, so the second one I haven't seen, but I think it's like a group of them because Jim Carrey's in it.
Yeah, I also didn't see the second one. I just remember Nick Cage from the first one.
I really liked Kick-Ass. Definitely, I like some Adam Scott Pilgrim at the same time. Two very different movies, but like two movies based on non-mainstream comics.
Yeah, same kind of energy.
Yeah, really good movie. I need to see the second one. It did not fare well in the box office.
Oh no, I remember when we had it here.
Jim Carrey, like after recording it, went on record to say not to see it because it was too violent.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about it. I'm waiting for it to be free somewhere to watch.
Yeah.
Cool, good pick. I was thinking Suicide Squad too, actually.
Oh yeah, like, Academy Award winner Suicide Squad.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those where I'm like, did it come out around Deadpool time? Yeah. Do people just have really bad takes on what's funny? All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we head out, Christian, what are you going to check out this week?
We got a few movies coming out this week that I'm going to be looking into. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, first and foremost. I've been pretty excited about this one for a little while, so hopefully we'll get a not hopefully. I'm going to get a good look at that. Hopefully it's good. We're also getting Mortal Engines this week, which is a much stranger-looking movie about, I guess it's post-apocalyptic and all the cities are on wheels now. And so London just kind of drives across England. I don't know. It looks super weird. I want it to be good. I'm not really expecting it to be, though, but hopefully it'll at least be entertaining.
Is that second one based on a novel? Because I've seen a couple of previews for it, and it looks awesome. But it's one of those where I'm like, is this a young adult novel that's going to be bad?
Yeah, it is based on a young adult novel.
Okay. I think that looks interesting. Spider-Verse also looks pretty cool.
Yeah, like the first trailer I saw for Mortal Engines, I was like, man, I am into this. This is going to be super cool. And then I saw a couple more, and I was like, ooh, maybe not.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Anything else?
Just trying to get caught up on the league, I think. That's going to be probably most of my time.
So for me, I finally platinumed Spyro 2, and I am about 25% through Spyro 3. So I'm going to plot away at that. Pretty cool. Spyro 3 surprisingly seems like it's closer to Spyro 1 in gameplay than it is to Spyro 2, which was interesting to see it not take a step back in like a bad way, but just take a step back to an earlier style of gameplay. And otherwise, I've been trying to finish up this Adam Sandler stand-up on Netflix, which I couldn't believe I kind of like. Someone told me to check it out, and I was bored, and I watched the first 20 minutes. It was actually pretty funny, and I haven't liked Adam Sandler in a really long time, so huge surprise.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would like to see Into the Spider-Verse or still Fantastic Beasts. I think Fantastic Beasts at this point is I'm hoping that it's in theaters next Thursday when I go home for Christmas. Still, fingers crossed, and I will see that then. And there seems to be a lot of movies that I want to see, so maybe over Christmas break or something, I'm just going to go to the movies every day at like noon or something to get cheaper.
Just knock them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that before. Like get behind and then come up on like a Wednesday and just do like 2 or 3, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I might have to do that because there's been a lot coming out I've been wanting to see. I really wish I had a movie pass that worked right now. Other than that, I've been watching a lot of reality TV, but I don't want to bore our listeners with that. I might talk about Survivor once the season ends, just because this has been the best season of Survivor I've ever seen, and I've been watching for maybe like 4 or 5 years at this point. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I've never been super into at all. I've never really been at all into reality TV, but I was listening to somebody talking about doing like fantasy reality stuff.
Yep, that's actually why I started watching reality. We draft teams like fantasy basketball, and that's all it needed was to get me into the shows.
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely hop on board on something like that.
Yeah, it's you care way more about the characters when you have money on it. All right, guys. Well, that's our episode. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us to let us know a suggestion for our Amazon review game, you can reach us at gambots.blog@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter at Gambots Network. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.